The air was crisp and sharp on a December evening in 2025, the kind of cold that made your breath visible and your fingers tingle. Chicago's skyline glittered against the dusk, a mosaic of steel and glass reflecting the ambition of a city that never slept. At the heart of it all stood the Brighthaven Hotel, a beacon of luxury that drew travelers from across the globe. Its towering facade, adorned with intricate stonework, glowed under the soft illumination of countless lights. Inside, the lobby was a masterpiece. A massive chandelier hung like a constellation of diamonds, casting prisms across polished marble floors. The faint hum of a grand piano wove through the air, mingling with the murmur of guests and the clink of crystal glasses. This was no ordinary hotel. It was a world unto itself, a place where dreams were polished to perfection. At 48, Nathan Carter was the mastermind behind this empire. A self-made billionaire, he owned the Brighthaven chain, a collection of 27 hotels stretching from New York to Dubai. But Nathan wasn't the kind of man you'd spot sipping champagne at a gala or flaunting his wealth on social media. His dark hair, now flecked with gray, framed a face that carried the weight of years spent clawing his way up from nothing. His hazel eyes, sharp and observant, missed little, whether it was a smudge on a glass door or the flicker of worry in an employee's expression. To the world, he was a visionary, a man who turned a boyhood dream into a multi-billion-dollar reality. To himself, he was still the kid from Ohio who once carried suitcases for $1 an hour. Nathan's story began in a small, weathered house in Toledo, where the winters were as unforgiving as the bills piling up on the kitchen table. His father, a factory worker, passed away when Nathan was 12, leaving his mother, Ellen, to raise him and his younger sister, Lily, on a seamstress's wages. Money was tight, but love was abundant. Nathan took his first job at 15, lugging bags at a rundown motel off the highway. The work was grueling long hours, heavy loads, and guests who rarely tipped, but it taught him the value of every smile, every moment of kindness. Those early days shaped him, embedding a belief that a hotel wasn't just a building. It was a sanctuary, a place where people sought refuge, celebration, or a fleeting escape from life's storms. By his 20s, Nathan had worked every role in the hospitality world: bellhop, concierge, night auditor. He saved every penny, studied business at night school, and by 30, opened his first small hotel. It was a modest start, but Nathan's knack for creating warmth in every detail, fresh flowers in the lobby, handwritten welcome notes, set him apart. Over 2 decades, that single hotel grew into the Brighthaven chain, a name synonymous with elegance and excellence. Yet, success came with a cost. The higher Nathan climbed, the further he felt from the heartbeat of his business. Board meetings and financial reports replaced the hum of the lobby. Polished executives drowned out the voices of bellhops and maids. He began to wonder, was his empire still a sanctuary, or had it become a gilded cage for the elite? That question gnawed at him, especially after a recent email from an old colleague, Maria, who'd worked with him in his bellhop days. Her words were blunt. Brighthaven used to feel like a home. Now it's just a machine, Nathan. Where's the soul? Maria's message hit like a punch, stirring memories of late-night shifts and shared laughter with coworkers who felt like family. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that his hotels were built on people, not just profit. Determined to reconnect, Nathan revived an old habit, visiting his hotels in disguise. No tailored suits, no entourage, just a man blending into the crowd, seeing his world through the eyes of those who kept it alive. On this particular evening, Nathan stood outside the Brighthaven Hotel in Chicago, his breath clouding in the frosty air. He'd chosen this location deliberately. It was the crown jewel of his chain, a 40-story marvel that had hosted presidents and pop stars. But tonight he wasn't the CEO. He was Nate, a weary traveler in a navy sweater, faded jeans, and a worn baseball cap pulled low. His Rolex was replaced by a $20 watch, its ticking a quiet reminder of the seconds he'd spent building this dream. He slung a duffel bag over his shoulder, the kind you'd find at a thrift store, and pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby enveloped him like a warm embrace. The chandelier's light danced across the walls, and the scent of cedar and citrus lingered in the air. Guests bustled about, businessmen in sharp suits, families snapping photos, a couple whispering excitedly by the concierge desk. Nathan's chest swelled with pride, but he tamped it down. He wasn't here to bask in his creation. He was here to listen, to observe, to find the soul Maria claimed was missing. He approached the front desk, where a young woman with a name tag reading Claire greeted him. Her auburn hair was neatly pinned, and her smile was as genuine as the morning sun. "Good evening, sir," Claire said, her voice bright despite the late hour. "Welcome to Bright Haven. Checking in?" Nathan nodded, offering a tired smile. "Yeah, just passing through. Name's Nate Thompson." Claire's fingers danced across the keyboard, her efficiency seamless. "Got you right here, Mr. Thompson. Standard room, one night. Anything special you need tonight?" "Just a quiet place to crash," Nathan replied, his tone deliberately casual. He studied Claire as she worked, her quick glance to ensure his comfort, the way she tucked a stray hair behind her ear. She was good, he thought, the kind of employee who made Bright Haven shine. As Claire handed him the keycard, their eyes met briefly. "Enjoy your stay, Mr. Thompson. If you need anything, I'm here." "Thanks, Claire," Nathan said, slipping the card into his pocket. He turned away, his heart a little lighter. One interaction, one smile, and he was all ready, reminded of why he'd started this. But the night was young, and Nathan knew the real test lay ahead. Somewhere in this glittering palace, there were stories waiting to be heard, stories that might change everything. He made his way to the elevator, the hum of the lobby fading behind him. As the doors slid shut, Nathan caught his reflection in the polished steel. The man staring back wasn't a billionaire, but a seeker, chasing a truth he'd almost forgotten. What he didn't know was that, in a few short hours, a chance encounter would unravel his carefully constructed world, pulling him back to the roots of who he was and who he could still become. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and Nathan Carter stepped into the heart of his creation, the Bright Haven Hotel, disguised as Nate Thompson, a nondescript traveler in a worn sweater and baseball cap. He was no longer the billionaire CEO, but a ghost in his own empire, here to uncover its pulse. The lobby's grandeur still lingered in his mind, the chandelier's glow, the marble's gleam, but now, as he moved through the hotel's arteries, he sought the quieter truths. The rhythm of the staff, the fleeting moments of guests, the soul Maria's email had claimed was fading. Tonight, he was an observer, and the Bright Haven was his canvas. Nathan's room on the 12th floor was modest by the hotel standards, a standard king with a view of Chicago's twinkling skyline. He dropped his duffel bag on the bed, noting the crisp linens and the faint scent of lavender from the diffuser. Every detail was deliberate, a hallmark of the Bright Haven experience he'd spent decades perfecting. Yet, as he ran his fingers along the polished desk, he wondered if these touches reached everyone or only those who could afford them. Shaking off the thought, he decided to explore. The lobby was a start, but the hotel's lifeblood flowed in. Its restaurants, bars, and hidden corners where guests and staff revealed their unguarded selves. He took the stairs down, avoiding the elevator's mirrored scrutiny, and emerged near the hotel's signature restaurant, the Ember Room. Its entrance was framed by frosted glass etched with delicate vines, and the hum of conversation spilled out like a warm tide. Nathan lingered outside, watching a family of four laugh over a shared dessert, their faces lit by Candlelight. A young couple clinked glasses, their eyes locked in a private vow. These were the moments he'd built this place for, but were they enough to answer Maria's challenge? He moved on, drawn to the lobby's cozy cafe, the Hearth, where the scent of roasted coffee and fresh pastries promised a quieter vantage point. The Hearth was a haven within the hotel's opulence, its leather armchairs and wooden tables softened by the glow of Edison bulbs. Nathan ordered a black coffee from a barista with a quick smile and settled into a corner table, blending into the background like a shadow. His eyes scanned the room. A businessman typed furiously on his laptop. A group of friends toasted a reunion, and a lone woman sketched in a notebook, her pencil dancing. Nathan sipped his coffee, its bitterness grounding him. This was why he came, to see the hotel as his guest did, to feel its heartbeat beyond the balance sheet's dot as he leaned back. A voice cut through the cafe's hum, sharp and impatient. "This is unacceptable. Do you even know who I am?" Nathan's gaze shifted to the front desk, visible through the cafe's open archway. A man in his late 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, loomed over the counter. His silver hair was slicked back and his face was flushed with indignation. The name tag on his lapel read, Langley. Claire Morgan, the receptionist. Nathan had met earlier, stood her ground, her expression calm but strained. "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Langley," Claire said, her voice steady. "Your suite is being prepared, but there was a slight delay due to a maintenance issue. It'll be ready in 15 minutes, and we'll upgrade you to our presidential suite at no charge." 15 minutes? Mr. Langley snapped, his voice carrying across the lobby. "I've been traveling for 12 hours, and you expect me to wait? This is the Bright Haven, not some roadside motel. I demand to speak to the manager." Nathan's jaw tightened. He recognized the type: wealthy, entitled, the kind of guest who tested a hotel's mettle. Part of him wanted to intervene, to slip into his CEO role and defuse the situation. But that would shatter his disguise, and he wasn't ready to step out of the shadows. Instead, he watched Claire, curious to see how she'd handle the storm. Claire's smile didn't waver, though. Her eyes betrayed a flicker of exhaustion. "I understand, sir. I've already alerted the manager, and she's on her way. In the meantime, may I offer you a complimentary drink at the Hearth while you wait?" Mr. Langley huffed, clearly unsatisfied, but he snatched the voucher Claire slid across the counter and stormed toward the cafe. Nathan sank deeper into his chair, hoping to avoid the man's orbit. Langley settled at a nearby table, muttering to himself as he flagged down a server. The tension in the air was palpable, and Nathan felt a pang of guilt. Claire was bearing the brunt of a system he'd built one where perfection was the standard, and any slip could spark a fire. He turned his attention to the staff around him. A young busboy, barely 20, cleared tables with quiet efficiency, his movements precise despite the late hour. A concierge escorted an elderly couple to the elevators, her laughter warm as she shared a story about Chicago's winters. These were the unsung heroes of Bright Haven, the ones who turned a building into a home. Nathan jotted mental notes, the busboy's diligence, the concierge's charm. But Maria's words echoed again. Where was the soul? Was it in these moments, or was it buried under the pressure to please guests like Langley? As Nathan sipped his coffee, he noticed a small detail. A cleaning staff member, a woman in her 40s, knelt to retrieve a child's toy that had rolled under a sofa. She handed it to a frazzled mother with a smile, earning a grateful nod. It was a fleeting act, unnoticed by most, but it struck Nathan like a chord. This was the kind of gesture he'd once made as a bellhop, the kind that lingered in a guest's memory. He felt a spark of hope, but it was tempered by the scene at the front desk. Claire was now speaking to a manager, a woman in a crisp blazer, while Langley's complaints echoed from the cafe. The manager approached Langley's table, her demeanor professional but firm. "Mr. Langley, I'm Diana, the duty manager. Your suite is ready now, and we've arranged a personal escort to ensure everything meets your expectations." "We're deeply sorry for the inconvenience," Langley grunted, rising with exaggerated reluctance. "It's about time. I'll be writing to your corporate office about this." As he strode away, Nathan caught Claire's eye. She exhaled, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in minutes. For a moment, their gazes locked, and Nathan offered a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement of her grace under pressure. Claire returned a faint smile before turning to the next guest. Nathan's chest tightened. She was the kind of employee who embodied Brighthaven's ethos, but at what cost? Was the system he'd built supporting her or wearing her down? He glanced at his watch. 9:47 p.m. The night was far from over, and the hotel was alive with stories waiting to unfold. Nathan finished his coffee, the bitter dregs mirroring his mood. He'd come to find the soul of Brighthaven, but so far, he'd seen both its brilliance and its cracks. The encounter with Langley had stirred something in him, a reminder that his hotels weren't just about luxury, but about people, from the staff who weathered storms to the guests who carried their own burdens. As he rose from his table, he felt a pull toward the lobby, a sense that something or someone was about to shift his perspective entirely. Nathan slipped back into the crowd, his cap low, his heart open. The Brighthaven was more than a hotel. It was a tapestry of human moments, and he was determined to unravel its deepest threads. Little did he know, a conversation just steps away would soon turn his world upside down, setting the stage for a decision that would redefine his legacy. The Brighthaven Hotel hummed with life, its lobby a symphony of clinking glasses, murmured conversations, and the soft strains of a piano. Nathan Carter, disguised as Nate Thompson, had spent the evening slipping through its veins, observing the pulse of his creation. The encounter with Mr. Langley's outburst had left a bitter taste, a reminder of the pressures his staff endured. Yet, the small acts of kindness, a cleaner returning a child's toy, Claire's grace under fire, had sparked a flicker of hope. Nathan wasn't done searching for the soul of his empire, and as he settled back into the Hearth Cafe, he sensed the night held more to reveal. The coffee in his hand was still warm, its aroma grounding him as he scanned the room, unaware that a single conversation was about to unravel his carefully guarded world. The hearth was quieter now, the late hour thinning the crowd. A few guests lingered, a woman typing on her phone, a man reading a newspaper, their faces softened by the cafe's amber glow. Nathan chose a corner table, its seclusion perfect for his role as an invisible observer. His baseball cap sat low, shadowing his eyes as he leaned back, letting the hotel's rhythm wash over him. The barista wiped down the counter, and a server, a lanky young man with a name tag reading Tom, moved between tables, balancing a tray of empty cups. Nathan's gaze drifted, his mind replaying Maria's email. Where's the soul? He was beginning to see it in the staff's quiet dedication, but was that enough? His thoughts were interrupted by voices from a table just behind him, close enough for the words to carry, but soft enough to feel private. A man spoke, his tone heavy. With frustration, "I can't shake this feeling, Sophie. This place is incredible, but it's eating me up, knowing what it cost us." Nathan's ears pricked, though he kept his eyes on his coffee, careful not to draw attention. The woman responded, her voice gentle but firm. "Ethan, we've been over this. It's our anniversary. You've been killing yourself at the shop. We deserve one night to feel like the world isn't caving in." Nathan shifted slightly, his curiosity piqued. He stole a glance over his shoulder, catching a glimpse of the couple. Ethan was in his late 20s, his dark hair tousled, his flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves. Fatigue lined his face, but his brown eyes held a quiet strength. Sophie, Seated across from him was younger, her blonde hair tied loosely, her sweater dotted with paint flecks. Her smile was warm, a beacon against Ethan's storm. They were an ordinary couple, not the polished elite Nathan often saw at Brighthaven, and their raw honesty drew him in like a magnet. Ethan leaned forward, his voice dropping. It's not about deserving soft. It's about reality. We're barely keeping up with rent, and Mom's medical bills are piling up. Dropping this much on a hotel feels wrong, like I'm failing her. Sophie reached for his hand, her fingers lacing through his. You're not failing anyone. You're working doubles at the garage, Ethan. You sold your old bike to cover her last hospital stay. This night, it's not just for us. It's to remind us we're still fighting together. Nathan's chest tightened, a pang of recognition hitting him. Their words echoed his own past, the nights he'd worked until dawn to pay his mother's bills, the guilt of every dollar spent on himself. He remembered the motel where he'd started, how a single kind guest's tip had felt. Like a lifeline, Ethan and Sophie weren't just guests. They were a mirror, reflecting the struggles that had forged him. He leaned in slightly, straining to hear more, his heart pounding with a mix of empathy and guilt. His hotels were meant to be sanctuaries, but for people like them, was the price too steep? Sophie's voice softened, almost a whisper. Look around, Ethan. This place is like a dream. You made this happen. You saved for months, took extra shifts. I sold that painting, the one I swore I'd never part with just to help. We're here because we love each other, because we're building something, even when it's hard. Ethan sighed, his shoulders slumping. I know. I see you sketching in that notebook, dreaming of your art show, and I want to give you that. Not just one night in a fancy hotel. Nathan's throat burned. He thought of his sister Lily, who'd once dreamed of college but settled for a factory job to help the family. He'd promised her a better life, and Brighthaven was his way of keeping that vow. But now, hearing Ethan and Sophie, he saw the faces behind his guest lists, not just the wealthy, but the dreamers, the fighters, the ones who scraped together every penny for a moment of joy. His hotel served them too, and that realization hit like a tidal wave. The conversation paused as Tom, the server, approached their table with a pitcher of water. In a moment of clumsiness, his tray tipped and a glass slid off, splashing water across Ethan's lap. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. Tom stammered, his face reddening as he grabbed the napkin. Ethan flinched, his frustration bubbling over. Come on, dude. Watch what you're doing. This is all I needed tonight. His voice was sharp, cutting through the cafe's calm. Sophie placed a hand on Ethan's arm, her touch calming. It's okay, Ethan. It's just water. She turned to Tom, her smile kind. Don't worry about it. Accidents happen. Tom mumbled another apology, his hands shaking as he mopped up the spill. Nathan watched, his heart torn. Ethan's outburst was understandable, a crack in the dam of his stress. But Sophie's grace was a quiet force, holding the moment together. Tom retreated, his shoulders hunched, and Nathan felt a surge of protectiveness for the young server. He knew that feeling messing up under pressure, fearing a guest's wrath. The incident shifted the couple's tone. Ethan rubbed his temples, his voice softer now. I'm sorry, Soph. I shouldn't have snapped. It's not his fault. I'm just stretched thin. Sophie squeezed his hand. I know, but we're here now. Let's make it count. Tomorrow, we'll go back to the grind, but tonight, let's just be us. Ethan managed a small smile, the first Nathan had seen. You always know how to pull me back. Nathan's mind raced. He wanted to do something, anything to ease their burden. The urge to reveal himself, to step in as the CEO and comp their stay, was overwhelming. But that would break the spell of his disguise, and he wasn't ready to lose the clarity of this moment. Instead, he pulled out his phone, pretending to checked messages, and typed a note. Couple at the hearth. Anniversary. Struggling with medical bills. Find a way to help. He didn't know how yet, but their story had lodged in his heart, a seed that would soon grow into something bigger. As Ethan and Sophie continued talking, their voices lighter now, Nathan felt a shift within himself. The Brighthaven wasn't just a business. It was a stage for human stories, raw and real. He thought of Maria's email again, her question about the soul. Maybe it wasn't lost, just waiting to be rediscovered in moments like this, in the struggles and love of people like Ethan and Sophie. He finished his coffee, the cup now cold, and rose from his table, his purpose clearer. The night wasn't over, and neither was his search. Tomorrow, he'd find a way to reach out to this couple, to make their moment at Brighthaven more than a fleeting escape. Nathan slipped out of the hearth, the couple's voices fading behind him. The lobby glowed ahead, its warmth beckoning. He didn't know it yet, but the threads of their story were already weaving into his, setting the stage for a decision that would ripple far beyond these walls. The Brighthaven Hotel's lobby glowed like a beacon in the Chicago night, its warmth a stark contrast to the icy wind rattling the windows. Nathan Carter, still cloaked in his Nate Thompson disguise, carried the weight of Ethan and Sophie's story like a stone in his chest. Their overheard conversation in the hearth had cracked something open in him, a reminder of his own struggles, of the dreams and sacrifices that built his empire. As he stood by the grand staircase, watching guests drift through the marble expanse, he knew he couldn't let their moment pass without action. The soul of Brighthaven, the one Maria's email had urged him to find, was alive in people like them, and Nathan was determined to honor it. The morning after the cafe encounter, Nathan woke early, the city's skyline gray against the dawn veiled in frost. His modest room on the 12th floor felt oddly intimate, a far cry from the penthouse suites he usually occupied. He pulled on his sweater and cap, checking his reflection to ensure the billionaire CEO was nowhere to be seen. Today, he wasn't just observing. He was acting, driven by a resolve that felt both personal and profound. Ethan and Sophie's love, their quiet strength, had rekindled a purpose he'd almost forgotten. He needed to meet them, to hear more. But first, he had to make their night at Brighthaven something more than a fleeting luxury. He made his way to the dining area, a sunlit space where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the bustling city. The breakfast buffet was a spread of decadent fresh croissants, smoked salmon, bowls of glistening fruit. But Nathan's eyes scanned the tables, searching for the couple. He spotted them in a corner, sharing a modest plate of eggs and toast. Ethan's posture was weary, his flannel shirt creased, but his smile as he passed Sophie, the butter was pure and unguarded. Sophie laughed, her paint-flecked sweater catching the light, and for a moment, they seemed untouched by the burdens they'd shared the night before. Nathan's heart swelled. This was why he'd built Brighthaven for moments like these. Fragile but fierce, he approached their table, his steps deliberate but casual. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice warm, the kind of tone that invited trust. "Name's Nate. I'm just passing through. Love meeting new folks." Ethan glanced up, his expression cautious but softening. "Sure, man. I'm Ethan. This is Sophie. Grab a seat." Nathan slid into a chair, setting his coffee down. "This place is something else, huh? You two celebrating something special?" Sophie's eyes lit up, her smile infectious. "It's our 2nd anniversary. Saved. Up forever for this. Ethan's been working like crazy to make it happen. Worth every penny," Ethan added, though his voice carried a hint of strain. "You traveling for work or what?" Nathan leaned back, keeping his story vague. "Bit of both. I move around. See what makes places like this tick. You guys seem like you've got a story. What's your deal?" Over the next half hour, Ethan and Sophie opened up, their words painting a vivid picture. Ethan was a mechanic, clocking long hours at a garage to cover his mother's cancer treatments. Sophie taught art part-time, her own paintings a quiet passion she squeezed into stolen moments. They'd met in a community college art class, bonded over shared dreams and stubborn hope. This night at Bright Haven was their way of carving out joy amidst chaos, a celebration of love that refused to break. Nathan listened, his heart heavy but inspired, their story echoing his own climb from nothing. He saw his younger self in Ethan, the relentless hustle, the weight of family. Sophie's sacrifice, selling her cherished painting, mirrored the times he'd skipped meals to save for his first hotel. Their honesty disarmed him, and he fought the urge to reveal who was. Instead, he leaned in, asking questions that drew out their warmth. Sophie's dream of an art show, Ethan's pride in fixing a car no one else could. They had no idea they were speaking to the man who owned the hotel, and Nathan wanted to keep it that way for now. Asterisk as they finished their meal, Nathan made a decision. He excused himself, citing a need to check his phone, and stepped into the lobby. He dialed Claire Morgan, the receptionist who'd impressed him with her professionalism. "Claire, it's Nate Thompson," he said, keeping his voice low. "I need a favor, and it's gotta stay quiet. There's a couple checking out today, Ethan Brooks and Sophie Turner. Cover their entire stay, meals included, and refund whatever they paid. Say it's from an anonymous guest who wanted to do something kind." Claire paused, her tone curious but professional. "That's generous, Mr. Thompson. I'll take care of it. Anything else?" Asterisk. "Just keep it discreet," Nathan said. "No names. They don't need to know it's me." "Got it," Claire replied, a smile in her voice. "I'll handle it." Nathan hung up, his pulse quickening. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a step toward the soul he was chasing. He returned to the dining area, but Ethan and Sophie had already left for their room. He lingered in the lobby, watching the flow of guests, his mind racing with possibilities. Could he do more? Not just for them, but for others like them. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice, sharp, demanding. "This is outrageous. I want an explanation." Mr. Langley, the difficult guest from the night before, stood at the front desk, his face red as he confronted Claire. Nathan edged closer, staying out of sight behind a pillar. Langley's suit was immaculate, but his tone was venomous. "I overheard your staff talking about comping a couple's stay. If you're handing out free rooms, I expect the same treatment. I'm a premium member." Claire's composure held, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of stress. "Mr. Langley, I assure you, our policies are fair. That was a unique situation, a guest's personal gesture. Your stay has already been upgraded, and we're happy to address any concerns." Langley scoffed, leaning over the counter. "I want to speak to the manager, now." Nathan's fists clenched. Langley's entitlement was everything he'd built. Bright Haven to rise above. He wanted to step in, to shut the man down, but that would blow his cover. Instead, he watched as Claire signaled for Diana, the duty manager, who approached with calm authority. "Mr. Langley, I'm Diana. Let's discuss this privately. We value your loyalty and want to ensure you're satisfied." Langley grumbled, but followed Diana to a side office, his complaints fading. Claire exhaled, her shoulders sagging for a moment before she straightened to greet the next guest. Nathan felt a surge of admiration for her resilience, but also a twinge of guilt. His system demanded perfection, and she was bearing the cost. He made a mental note to review staff support, another thread in the soul he was rediscovering. Later that morning, Nathan lingered near the front desk, watching as Ethan and Sophie approached to check out. Claire greeted them with her usual warmth, then leaned forward, her voice soft. "Mr. Brooks, Miss Turner, I have some good news. Your entire stateroom, meals, everything has been covered by an anonymous guest who heard about your anniversary. They wanted to make it special for you. Ethan's jaw dropped, his eyes wide. What? Are you serious? Sophie clutched his arm, her voice trembling. Who would do that? We don't even know anyone here. Claire smiled, her eyes twinkling. Just someone who wanted to spread a little kindness. They asked to stay anonymous. You're all set to go, and your payment's been refunded. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes as she turned to Ethan. I can't believe this. It's like a miracle. Ethan shook his head, his voice thick. Whoever it is, tell them thank you. From both of us. Nathan, standing by a rack of brochures, watched from a distance, his heart full. Their joy was a spark, igniting something he hadn't felt in years. He slipped out of the lobby, his cap low, his mind already turning to what came next. Ethan. And Sophie's story wasn't just a moment. It was a call to action, a chance to make Brighthaven more than a hotel. As he stepped into the cold Chicago morning, he knew this was only the beginning. Nathan Carter stepped out of the Brighthaven Hotel into the biting Chicago morning, the cold air a sharp contrast to the warmth of Ethan and Sophie's gratitude echoing in his mind. Their tearful reaction to the anonymous gift of a comped stay had lit a fire in him, one that burned brighter than any boardroom victory. Disguised as Nate Thompson, he glimpsed the soul of his empire not in its chandeliers or marble floors, but in the stories of struggle and love that unfolded within its walls. As he boarded a flight back to New York, the weight of that realization settled over him. He'd built Brighthaven to be a sanctuary, but for whom? The elite or the dreamers like Ethan and Sophie who sacrificed everything for a single night? Back in his Manhattan office, the city's skyline sprawled beyond the glass walls, a testament to his success. Yet, the sleek desk and leather chair felt foreign, distant from the gritty determination that had driven him as a young bellhop. Nathan's mind kept returning to the hearth, to Ethan's weary voice and Sophie's unwavering hope. Their story wasn't unique. Countless others faced medical bills, long hours, and dreams deferred. His hotels welcomed them, but at what cost? Maria's email, with its piercing question about Brighthaven's soul, loomed larger than ever. He'd found a piece of that soul in Chicago, and now he had to act. Nathan called a meeting with his executive team, a group of sharp minds who'd helped scale Brighthaven into a global name. The boardroom was a study in modern elegance, polished wood, floor-to-ceiling windows, a digital screen displaying revenue charts. But Nathan's focus wasn't on numbers today. He stood at the head of the table, his usual suit replaced by a simple blazer, a subtle nod to the man he'd been in Chicago. The team's 6 men and women in tailored attire watched him with curiosity. Among them was Richard Hayes, a board member known for his razor-sharp focus on profit margins. I'd been thinking about what Brighthaven stands for. Nathan began, his voice steady but charged. We're not just selling rooms or luxury. We're selling moments, hope, escape, celebration. But too often, those moments are out of reach for the people who need them most. He recounted his Chicago visit, though he kept his disguise a secret. He described overhearing a couple struggle, their sacrifice for one night at Brighthaven, and the impact of covering their stay. That moment changed them, he said, but it also changed me. We have the power to do more to make our hotels a haven for families facing hardship, medical bills, financial strain, loss. I want to create a fund, the Brighthaven Fund, to offer complimentary stays to those who need a break the most. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. Sarah, the head of operations, nodded thoughtfully. It's a beautiful idea, Nathan. It aligns with our brand's ethos, hospitality as heart. But how would it work? Identifying recipients, managing costs? Nathan outlined his vision, partnering with local charities and hospitals to identify families in need, starting with a pilot program in 5 cities. We'd cover rooms, meals, even small extras like spa treatments or museum tickets. It's not just a stay. It's a chance to breathe, to heal. The team murmured in agreement, but Richard Hayes leaned forward, his silver hair catching the light, his expression skeptical. "Nathan, I respect the sentiment, but let's be realistic. Our margins are tight. Comps for a few guests are one thing, but a fund like this? It's a financial black hole. Shareholders won't stand for it, and neither will I." Nathan's jaw tightened. Richard was a numbers man, instrumental in Brighthaven's IPO, but often at odds with Nathan's instincts. This wasn't the first time they'd clashed, but it felt personal now. "Richard, this isn't about margins. It's about purpose. We're profitable because we deliver experiences, not just beds. If we can't use that success to help people like the couple, what are we doing here?" Richard's eyes narrowed. "We're running a business, not a charity. You're talking about diverting resources from growth new properties, renovations. One sob story doesn't justify risking our bottom line." The room tensed, the air thick with unspoken loyalties. Nathan felt the weight of his team's gazes. But he thought of Ethan, working doubles to pay for his mother's chemo, and Sophie, selling her art for one night of joy. Their faces grounded him. "It's not one story," he said, his voice rising. "It's thousands. Families who save for years, who need a moment to feel human again. I started as a bellhop, Richard. I carry bags for people like them. If Brighthaven can't serve them, it's lost its way." Sarah interjected, her tone diplomatic. "What if we start small? A limited fund, targeted outreach. We could measure impact, present it to shareholders as a brand enhancer. It's not just charity, it's storytelling, something our guests will connect with." Nathan nodded, grateful for her pragmatism. "Exactly. We'll fund it initially from my personal shares if needed, but this isn't negotiable. It's who we are." Richard leaned back, his lips pursed. "You're betting." "A lot on a feeling, Nathan. I hope you're ready to answer for it when the numbers don't add up." The meeting ended with a plan to draft a proposal, but Richard's dissent lingered like a shadow. Nathan returned to his office, his mind a storm of doubt and determination. He pulled up a photo of the Chicago Brighthaven, its lobby glowing in the dusk. He thought of Claire, handling Langley's complaints with grace, and Tom, the server who'd fumbled but tried. They were part of this too, the unsung heroes who'd make the Brighthaven Fund real. He began sketching ideas, criteria for recipients. Partnerships with nonprofits, a launch event to share the vision. That evening, Nathan sat alone, a glass of bourbon untouched on his desk. Maria's email flashed in his mind. Where's the soul? He was finding it, piece by piece, in the stories of his guests and the resilience of his staff. But Richard's warning wasn't baseless. The fund was a risk, a leap into uncharted territory. Yet, Nathan felt a clarity he hadn't in years. This wasn't just about Ethan and Sophie. It was about every family who'd ever felt the world was too heavy, who needed a night to remember they were more than their struggles. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to his team, outlining the next steps. "The Brighthaven Fund isn't a cost," he wrote. "It's an investment in who we are, in the moments that define us. Let's make it happen." As he hit send, a weight lifted. He was no longer the bellhop from Ohio, nor the CEO in the corner office. He was a man rediscovering his purpose, and the road ahead, though uncertain, felt right. Nathan glanced out at the city, its lights a constellation of stories waiting to be told. The Brighthaven Fund was just the beginning, a seed planted in a Chicago cafe ready to grow. He didn't know it yet, but in a few months, that seed would bloom into something extraordinary, bringing Ethan, Sophie, and countless others back into his orbit, proving that the soul of Brighthaven was alive and thriving. The New York skyline shimmered under a crisp November evening in 2026. A year after Nathan Carter's life-changing night in Chicago, the flagship Brighthaven Hotel, a towering masterpiece of glass and steel, stood as the stage for a moment Nathan had been building toward since that fateful encounter with Ethan and Sophie. The Brighthaven Fund, his vision to offer complimentary stays to families in need, was ready to launch, and tonight's gala would mark its debut. Nathan stood in the hotel's grand ballroom, his heart pounding not with nerves, but with purpose. This wasn't just an event, it was a promise, a testament to the soul he'd rediscovered in his empire. The ballroom was a vision of elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow. Tables were adorned with white orchids, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. Guests filled the space philanthropists, media, Brighthaven staff, and families who'd already benefited from the fund's pilot program. Nathan, now in a tailored suit but with the same earnest eyes that had watched Ethan and Sophie in the hearth, scanned the crowd. He wasn't Nate Thompson tonight. He was Nathan Carter, CEO, ready to share a story that had changed him forever. Among the guests were Ethan Brooks and Sophie Turner, flown in from Chicago at Nathan's invitation. They'd been told only that they were attending a special event, unaware of the role their story had played. Sophie wore a simple navy dress, her paint-flecked fingers clutching a clutch, while Ethan, in a borrowed suit, looked both proud and out of place. They mingled near a display showcasing the fund's mission, their faces lit with curiosity. Nathan watched them from across the room, a smile tugging at his lips. They had no idea the surprise awaiting them. The event began with a video projected on a massive screen. Images of families checking into Brighthaven hotels, their faces glowing with relief and joy. A single mother laughed as her son splashed. In a pool, a veteran and his wife danced in the lobby. A young girl, bald from chemo, hugged a teddy bear gifted by staff. The narration, in Nathan's own voice, spoke of moments that matter, of hospitality as hope. The room was silent, the weight of those stories sinking in. Nathan stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm on his face. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady but rich with emotion. "A year ago, I walked into our Chicago hotel, not as a CEO but as a guest, searching for something I'd lost, the soul of Brighthaven. I found it in a cafe, in a conversation I wasn't meant to hear." He paused, his eyes finding Ethan and Sophie in the crowd. A young couple, celebrating their anniversary, spoke of sacrifice, love, and struggle. They'd saved for months for one night, a night they felt guilty for taking because of medical bills and dreams deferred. Their story stopped me in my tracks. The audience leaned in, captivated. Nathan continued, his words raw but deliberate. "I covered their stay anonymously, but it wasn't enough. Their courage, their love, showed me what Brighthaven could be, a haven for everyone, not just the privileged. That's why we're here tonight, launching the Brighthaven Fund to offer free stays to families facing hardship. Because one night can't fix everything, but it can remind us that hope is real." He gestured to the screen, where Ethan and Sophie's photo appeared, not their faces, but a candid shot of them in the hearth, hands clasped, unaware of the camera. This couple inspired the fund. They're here tonight, and I'd like to invite them up, Ethan Brooks and Sophie Turner. The room erupted in applause as Ethan and Sophie froze, their eyes wide with shock. Sophie clutched Ethan's arm, her voice a whisper. "Is he talking about us?" Ethan, pale but steady, led her to the stage, their steps hesitant under the spotlight. Nathan met them with a warm smile, shaking Ethan's hand and hugging Sophie gently. "You had no idea," he said, his voice low, "but that night in Chicago, you changed everything." Ethan's voice cracked as he spoke into the microphone. We don't know what to say. That night was a gift, and we thought the free stay was the miracle. But this?" He gestured to the room, his eyes glistening. "This is beyond anything we imagined." Sophie, tears streaming, added, "We're just regular people. To know our story did this. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Thank you for seeing us." The audience stood, their applause a wave of warmth. Nathan felt a lump in his throat, the weight of their gratitude grounding him. He'd kept his disguise a secret, but now, as himself, he was building something real. The fund was already helping dozens of families, and tonight's launch would expand it nationwide. As Ethan and Sophie returned to their seats, Nathan shared more stories. A mother whose son smiled for the first time post-surgery, a couple renewing vows after financial ruin. Each tale wove the fund into Brighthaven's legacy, but the moment wasn't without challenge. As Nathan opened the floor to questions, a reporter, a woman with sharp eyes and a notepad, stood. "Mr. Carter, I'm Laura Bennett from the Post. The Brighthaven Fund is inspiring, but skeptics might call it a PR stunt to boost your brand. How do you respond to those who question your motives?" The room tensed, murmurs rippling. Nathan's heart raced, but he met her gaze, his voice calm. "I'd be skeptical too, Miss Bennett. I spent years chasing profit, building a name. But that night in Chicago wasn't about cameras or headlines. It was about two people who reminded me why I started this. The fund isn't for our image, it's for them and for every family who needs a moment to breathe. If that's PR, so be it. I'd rather be known for that than for another skyscraper." Asterisk, Laura Bennett sat down, her expression softening, and the audience erupted in applause, louder than before. Nathan's honesty had turned her challenge into a moment of conviction, a testament to the fund's sincerity. He stepped back, letting the applause wash over him, his eyes finding Ethan and Sophie again. They were clapping too, their faces radiant with gratitude. The Brighthaven Fund wasn't just a program, it was a bridge, connecting the hotel's past with a future rooted in compassion. As the gala continued, guests mingled, sharing stories of their own. Ethan and Sophie were surrounded, their humility drawing people in. Sophie revealed she'd held her first art exhibition, funded partly by the refund from their Chicago stay. And Ethan spoke of his mother's improving health, a glimmer of hope amidst ongoing treatment. Nathan watched from a distance, a glass of sparkling water in hand, his heart full. The fund had already touched lives, but tonight it was official, a commitment to thousands more. Claire Morgan, flown in from Chicago, approached Nathan, her smile as warm as ever. "Mr. Carter, I knew there was something about you that night," she said, her eyes twinkling. "You weren't just a guest. This fund, it's going to change everything." Nathan chuckled, his disguise long gone. "You made it possible, Claire. You and every staff member who makes Brighthaven a home. This is as much yours as mine." The event wound down, but its impact lingered. Nathan stood alone on the balcony, the city's lights a canvas of possibility. He thought of his mother, Ellen, who'd never lived to see his hotels, and his sister, Lily, now a teacher thanks to his support. The Brighthaven Fund was for him too, a way to honor the struggles that shaped him. He'd faced doubts, Richard Hayes' warnings, his own fears, but tonight proved it was worth it. The soul of Brighthaven was alive, woven into every story shared under its roof. Asterisk, this story of Nathan, Ethan, and Sophie is more than a tale of a hotel stay. It's a celebration of the human spirit. At its core, it's about seeing people not as guests or numbers, but as stories of resilience, love, and hope. Nathan's journey from a disguised observer to a visionary leader reminds us that true success isn't measured in wealth, but in impact. His decision to create the Brighthaven Fund shows that one moment, one act of kindness, can ripple outward, touching lives far beyond its origin. Ethan and Sophie's sacrifice, their unwavering love, teach us that even in hardship, we find strength in connection, in the moments we fight for. And Claire, Tom, and the staff embody the quiet heroism of those who make the world kinder, one gesture at a time. The lesson here is simple but profound. We all have the power to listen, to act, to make a difference. Whether it's a smile, a helping hand, or a bold vision like Nathan's, these actions weave a tapestry of hope. This story challenges us to look around, to see the Ethans and Sophies in our lives, and to ask, what can we do to lift them up? It's a call to embrace our shared humanity, to build havens wherever we are. If this story moved you, if it sparked a spark of hope or inspiration, then you're part of the Legacy Stories family. We're dedicated to sharing tales like these stories that remind us of the beauty and strength in everyday lives. Subscribe to our channel, Legacy Stories, for more narratives to uplift and inspire. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from, what this story meant to you, or the moments of kindness you've witnessed. Your voice matters, and together, we can keep these stories alive. Hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and join us for the next journey. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.